episode of Latter Day Takes. I have two guests with me that have been on the podcast. Well, I mean, one is an OG who has been from the very beginning when we were 50 Shades of Blue. Chase Bartholomew, say hello to everybody. Welcome back, sir.
Good to be back.
It sounds like it. Um, and Trevor Beck, who has been a friend of the podcast before. Both of you have been on to share these scary stories, but I want to put them all in one place because it's Halloween. I want to get in the mood. 'Tis the season. I want to feel that Halloween spirit. And what I especially love is that these are real stories happening to, I mean, some of you directly, and then some of you like to people you knew very close to you in your lives. And so those are the type of ones that really creep me out. Like, I don't really get creeped out by the slasher movies and stuff like that. Like, I get creeped out by stuff that feels real. So, um, with that said, I think we'll just go right into it because we don't really need to waste a whole lot of time. Chase, you're going to start by telling us one that's actually you haven't shared before, and it's just kind of like to kind of grease the wheels a little bit to get us going. That happened to you. I don't know. Give us the context. I don't even know how old you were when this happened.
Yeah, I'll just kind of set the mood with this one. If this one's disappointing, just wait for the next one. I think you'll be more satisfied. But this one happened back. I want to say I was probably in high school. I can't even remember the exact age, and it's pretty short actually. So really, what happened is my we grew up in Draper, down the street from Harper, and my parents used to, or they still go running up in Corner Canyon like every day. And my dad likes to go at night, so like after dark, he goes and just runs on the trails up in Corner Canyon. And this was back when Corner Canyon wasn't nearly as popular. There wasn't like a million mountain bikers up there, so it was like you go up there and have a lot of solitude. And he came back from running one night, and he was like kind of freaked out. And he's not a guy who easily gets spooked. And he starts telling us about how he was running down this section of the trail where like the trees were really thick, and he felt like the weirdest thing, like didn't even make any logical sense to him how he heard this, but he felt like there was something like just a few feet away from his ear, like breathing in his ear when he was running. And it freaked him out so bad he like took off running as fast as he could and like didn't even look back, just ran all the way home and just totally freaked out. And so like this was like a weird story, but I didn't think much about it. And then a week or two later, my family did our annual Fish Lake camping trip where back when my grandpa was still alive, we used to go there every summer and just fish as a family for a few days. And middle of the night, like 2 in the morning, I'm in the tent and I have to take a piss. And at this point, I had totally forgotten about my dad's story. Like it wasn't on my mind, it wasn't even anything I was thinking about. And I get out, walk like 30 feet away from the tent, and I start taking a piss. It's like pitch black. And out of nowhere, I have this sensation of something breathing in my ear, like right up against me. Like it feels like if it's a wild animal, it's literally like breathing in my ear. Freaked me out so bad, I pulled my pants up mid piss, like probably pissed in my pants, ran back in the tent. Anyway, that's the story. So not quite as dramatic as the one I'm about to tell you, which this one occurred. Did I
Wait,
have I
wait,
shared this one before?
you
Go ahead.
have, but
Yeah,
real quick, I got some questions about
yeah.
that first story.
Go
Did
for it.
you
Yeah.
wet your pants?
I mean, yeah. I did. Obviously, I was mid
Okay.
I was mid piss. You can't stop once you start. It stings.
Yeah, good point. Good point, Lloyd. Um, so I gotta know because I know your dad, obviously, and
Yeah.
I want to know when you said he was creeped out because your dad's the type where it's like if he's messing with you, you can kind of know immediately because like he's not that serious. He's like Norm Macdonald. He'll just be like telling a
Yeah.
story and he'll be like half smiling the whole time, and you're like, yeah, okay, none of this is
Uh,
real. What was he like that night?
I can't remember honestly. I wish I could give you like all the details. I didn't really think much of the story when he told it to me, so I didn't like. To me, what affected me was having the exact same thing happen to me, like hundreds of miles away at Fish Lake a week later. But that's the weird part is like we both had this same experience, like a couple weeks apart, but like 100 miles or so apart. It's just weird. I don't have any
And like when
explanation
you
for it.
said it was breathing, like how like 5 feet away, you said from your
It felt
face.
like within a few feet of my ear, just like breathing, like right there. Like it
And
felt
what
like a
would you
person
compare the
was
breathing to?
just like heavy breathing. I don't know. Like I don't know if it's a person or what, but
Huh? Trev, you got
You
any
never
yeah.
saw,
questions?
saw anything, or
Didn't see
you just
no
bailed.
nothing.
But you never saw anything.
Didn't hear any footsteps. Didn't hear anything. Like I would have figured if it was an animal when I like booked it back to the tent, something would have scampered away, but nothing. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it
Yeah, it's
was.
creepy.
That
Yeah,
is creepy. All right. If anybody else has stories that's hearing this that are like that, I want to hear them. I want to hear them all. But with that, Chase, let's go into the next one. This is a longer one. Happened on your mission. Has some
yeah.
great details to it. And this
So
one, buckle up, everybody.
so this story has spread all over the place. So for example, when I moved down to Arizona for school, someone told me. So I'd only lived in Utah as an adult up until this point, where I came back from my mission, lived in Utah all the way up until I moved to Arizona for school. And someone in Arizona who I had just met that night told me my own story because it had spread that far. Like, so it's
Were you
become like probably.
ticked or were you like
No,
flattered?
I was kind of flattered. I'm like, man, this has become like an urban legend. This is crazy.
Did they try and sign
Um,
it off as their own story, or were they like, I heard this
no,
happen to
just
somebody?
it was some guy, and it was me. But
Oh,
so,
you said
so
you who was that guy that you said that story about? I don't know. It's just some guy. I'm him.
Michael Scott. Um, all right. So this happened. So I started my mission in Argentina, in 2007 to nine. So anyway, halfway through my mission, about a year in, and we had transfers. So I'm just jumping right into the story, I guess. So we had transfers coming up, and I got shipped across the mission like 6 hours away. So I hop on a bus, take the bus 6 hours across Argentina to this new area, and we get there like at 1 or 2 in the morning. My companion is outside the bus waiting, so we take my luggage, we wheel it down the road. We lived like a few blocks away from the terminal. On the way to the house, we get to like right where the house is, and then across the street, I noticed some dude just like standing out like right at the front of his property, just staring at us. And I look over at him, just like I figured like we woke him up from all the noise from my luggage or something. So I like try to apologize to him or like say hi to him or whatever. And he just doesn't even acknowledge me, just keeps staring at us. So we just awkwardly walk in the house and we get in there and I ask my companion, like, oh, who's the neighbor? Do you know this guy? And he's like, oh, that guy is like legendary in this house. Apparently for, I guess the missionaries had lived in this house for a long time. And they're like this legend had passed down that the guy across the street's like this creepy guy that like missionaries had kind of like noticed he's like kind of seems like he's watching them sometimes and just but never talks to anyone. Like anytime a missionary tries to like go up to him or address him in the street, he'll just like look right past you like you're not there. So anyway, about a month goes by, and over that time, I probably bumped into the neighbor a few more times, once or twice out in front of his house, another time like at the store. And every time I tried to be friendly, say hi to him or whatever, and he, same thing every time, just like looked right past me like I'm not there, just didn't even acknowledge us. So then about, I would say another month goes by, and I don't remember for sure ever seeing him over the next month. And one day we are eating lunch at a member's house, and I'm just kind of sitting there spacing off, minding my own business while my companion was talking to the family. And I was kind of looking over at the TV in the corner, and they had the news on. And on the news, they start talking about there was some dead body they had found up in the hills, like not too far from where we lived.
Real
And
quick,
they were talking about,
aren't you forgetting a part? Because I've heard the story a
no,
few times. Of when
I don't think so.
you were in your own house, the first house, and
No,
asleep.
no, I think it'll come back to that. I
Okay,
think
all right,
yeah.
all right. Sorry,
So
I'm
yeah,
sorry. I'm done interrupting.
when I finish, you can let me know if I forgot something. But yeah, so they're talking about this dead body, and then they go on talking about it, and they had identified the body, and they like show a picture, not like of the dead body, but a picture of the person who it was who they identified, and it was the freaking guy across the street, like he was dead. And so we're like kind of freaking out because it's like this creepy guy, this legendary guy across the street is dead now, and it just like adds a whole new level to like this missionary legend. And a little bit of time goes by, and a for rent sign goes up at the house where this guy used to live. And we actually had a cop in our ward who we kind of got the inside scoop about what happened. And apparently this guy like didn't have any family, no one to pass the house on to. So the state took over the house and apparently got auctioned off. Some guy bought it and was renting it out. And so every time we'd walk by, we see that for rent sign. We kind of started joking, like, because we hated our house. We had like an ant infestation in our house. It was kind of gross and like just falling apart. Like nothing worked. So,
That is the most missionary thing ever, by the way. I
right,
don't know a missionary in a third world country that didn't have an infestation in their
right, it
home,
was
for the
disgusting.
record.
Yeah, I can't believe I lived like that for 2 years. But anyway, so we started joking about like we should just move into this house. Like even though it's like a totally creepy idea, we're joking about it. But then like over time, like the joke became like, no, let's really do this. So we end up like contacting the mission. We like let them know this house is like the same price as what we were already paying, but it was like a little bit bigger, a little bit nicer. And so they end up agreeing to it, and we end up just signing a deal. We got out of our old contract. We move into the dead guy's house. And first day we get there, it's really weird because like all of his stuff was pretty much as he left it. I think they like cleaned up a few things, but it was like there was like still like all of his furniture, like some of his clothes and just like weird stuff. So we like took a day and just took all of his junk and like moved it to like a back little storage room and just moved in and started living there. And I remember like it felt really weird the first couple of nights. Like I did not feel comfortable, but I just figured it was just like me psyching myself out because I knew the guy was dead and he was kind of weird and whatever. So kind of get used to it over the next week. And about a week or so in, one night I'm taking a shower and I was kind of like, so in Argentina, like we talked about the ants, there was like tons of spiders. And I had a couple of experiences earlier in my mission where I'd be taking a shower and I'd have like a spider like drop down on me. And so I was paranoid about that. So I was taking a shower, and outside of this shower, there was a little vent, like right outside the shower. And I looked at the vent, and like one of the corners was kind of bent back. So there was a little gap between the wall and this corner of the vent. So, like, there was a little gap. And I just pictured some like huge Lord of the Rings spider living in there. And it was going to come out and like try to get me when I was washing my hair. So I like tried to like reach out and bend the vent closed, and when I tried to do that, the whole thing just popped out, fell on the ground. So I like finished showering. I get out and I go pick up the vent to put it back in. And as I'm pushing it back in, I kind of look back there and I see something like tucked way back there in the vent. And so I reach in there and it's this box, like a little box. And I pull it out and I open it up and there's like, it looks like a little filing cabinet. There's like little tabs across the whole box with like little things scribbled on it, and then like files to go with it. And I start thumbing through these, like thinking, what did I just come across? So I start thumbing through it, and it's pictures, like pictures of people. And I start to realize like these are pictures of missionaries, but not like with them, not like, hey, I'm friends with the missionaries. Like these are like stalker, creeper pictures of him like following missionaries around, like them coming and going from the house where we lived across the street. Just super creepy stuff. And it looks like these are like old. Like I don't even recognize the missionaries in most of these pictures. This is like years and years back. And I start going through it, and it's like a whole box. Like this thing is full of like probably hundreds of photos of missionaries. So I start going through it, and then like it hits me. And at this point, I'm actually out of the bathroom, and my companion's like going looking at this with me, and we're going through it. It's like super late at night, and it occurs to me like, wait, what if we're in this thing? So I go to the very back, like assuming it's chronological, and I get to the very back, and there's a little tab, and it has my name and my companion's name written on there. And there's like only like 6 or 7 photos in our file. It was like a lot smaller than the other ones. And I start thumbing through them, and they were just kind of like the other ones. Like one of them was us leaving the house. There was another of us like walking down the street, and he's behind us like a few hundred feet. And then there was one at the very end. And I don't know if you remember back when like we used to all do film cameras, and occasionally you'd like go to Costco when you get them developed, and like sometimes there were just bad exposures. And there was one that kind of looked like that at the end. It just didn't look right. And so I just kind of tossed that one aside on the kitchen table. And at this point, I'm like, I should probably call the mission president and like fill him in on it because he didn't know any of this. Like, I don't think he was even aware we moved or anything. So I'm like, it's late at night, but this is probably a good reason to call him. So I pick up the phone to call the mission president. It rings like a couple times. And before he picks up, I suddenly hear my companion like make this noise, like this, just like he gasps and he's freaking out. And I look over at him, and right then the mission president answers, and he's just pointing at that photo that I tossed aside, and it's like the one with the bad exposure. And I'm like, hold on. So I have to like put the mission president on hold. I'm like, dude, what's up? And he's just pointing at it, and he says, dude, that is us sleeping in our beds. And I look at the picture, and it's like standing right over us in our twin beds, of us asleep in our beds. And so I have to get back on the phone with the mission president and like go through the whole thing with him. And he tells us like, you guys need to move out of this house tomorrow. You need to call the police because this guy's probably up to some other weird stuff, and there could be some other things that he did, or like you need to get the cops involved. And so we do that. We call the cops the next day. We end up working out a deal to move out of the house and get back to our house, and things kind of go back to normal. We saw the cops come and go from the house, from the creepy guy's house across the street a couple of times, but we didn't really know what was going on with that, and we didn't pry or anything, and we just kind of went back to our normal lives. But then, like, fast forward a few weeks from then, and I'm in bed one night, and I wake up in the middle of the night, and I don't know why this triggered this memory, but it triggered a flashback to having woken up in the middle of the night about a month before. This is before this guy had disappeared. This is before all this stuff went down. But I had a flashback waking up in the middle of the night to like a flash of light. And I remember when I thought back to it, at the time, I was thinking it was like a lightning strike or a car driving by, but it was a clear sky. There was no cars in the road. And I was really too tired to care to figure out what it was. But before I went back to sleep, I felt a draft in the room. So I got up and found an open window in the kitchen and closed it, just figuring my companion had left the window open. And I closed the window, go back to bed. And it's when I had this flashback that I realized that was probably when that guy took that picture of us. And when I went and closed the door or closed the window and got back in bed, he was probably still in the room, just like chilling in the corner, waiting for me to go back to bed. So anyway, the end of my time in this area comes, and this is like a few weeks after this. And the cop in our ward pulled me aside at sacrament meeting, and he is telling me like, there's a few things we found that I probably should tell you about that I'd want to know if it was me. And he says they found all kinds of like creepy journals. This guy was like keeping track of the missionary schedules, and just like he had some books that were like devil worshiping type of stuff, just like creepy, like animal sacrifice, weird stuff like that. And the cop, and granted, I don't know if I believe this theory, but I don't know if I don't believe it either. So his theory is that this guy had this eventual idea or fantasy or goal to sacrifice the missionaries, and he thinks that we might have been his like eventual target. And he thinks maybe because I woke up when that picture got taken, or maybe the guy just chickened out, but he couldn't get himself to do it, so he went and jumped off the cliff, and that's where they found his body. So yeah, that's the story.
Pretty wild, man. Pretty freaking wild. I have a couple questions for you though. How in the world did you not tell your mission president or the mission home that you moved houses?
No, we told the mission home. That's how we
Oh,
got
but maybe the
permission to
mission
move.
president just didn't know.
I just don't think he cared
Oh,
about
that's
those kind of
fair.
details.
That's fair. Those are like some of the details probably they don't really need to know
Yeah,
at times. Okay, that's
yeah.
fair. And then when the guy had all the names of the missionaries that he had pictures of on the tabs, did he spell your name correctly?
So when I was in Argentina, I did my last name in Spanish. So instead of Bartholomew, it was Bartolome, and so that's how he wrote it because that's how it was on my
Oh,
tag. But yeah,
oh, okay. Good for him. I'm just checking because I would love to see somebody who's not a native English speaker try to spell Bartholomew. That's all.
no, they can't.
Trevor, you got
Not
any
even
questions?
not even English speakers can spell my name
Yeah, that's
correctly.
true.
No, that's a wild story though, bro. I think
Yeah,
I've heard that from Harper before, but that is
Did I share
creepy.
that? I might have, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that story spreads, man. People always tell me they retell it, and I'm sure they butcher it every time. But
Oh, I
Were
didn't
there
butcher
any
it,
other
dude.
pictures?
I gave it justice.
Were there
What
any
was that,
other
Trev?
pictures of missionaries in the room?
what was that? Oh yeah, just the one picture of us in the room. Every other picture that I could tell, I didn't go through every single one, but the pictures that I looked at were all like just the same, like leaving and going from the house, following them down the road. Yeah, there was just that one at the end that had
Did
the
you
in the
take
room.
pictures of this stuff, bro? I would have been documenting this stuff, sending it home.
For some reason at the time, I didn't think it was that cool. Like in hindsight, yeah, like that's crazy. But like at the time, I was just like, oh, like this is weird.
That's wild, bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
Good
crazy.
story.
That's freaking crazy. All right. I guess it is now Trevor's turn to share his famous story. I want to give some background for this story. First and foremost, though, before I do that, we have a couple examples that we're going to give. So that's what makes this now cooler to have this show on YouTube. We're going to show examples that Trevor gives that kind of like help you understand exactly what it is exactly that they were hearing, and that may sound vague, but we'll get to that point in the middle of the story. When I first heard this story, it actually wasn't from Trevor, and it didn't happen to Trevor either. So that's an important note. But he'll also explain who it happened to and how he knows them. Uh, but it was somebody else that shared the story. It was a friend. It was a mutual friend of ours, and it was before I even knew Trevor. And I remember hearing this story, and they got like a lot of pieces of it wrong. Not wrong necessarily, but they didn't like get all the details. So it wasn't as well told, but it was still one of those stories that I just legitimately like couldn't stop thinking about as I was going to bed, because I was just like, that is like, I was just like kind of always looking over my shoulder. It was one of those stories where I'm just like, I don't love the way I feel right now, because that is a creepy freaking story. So basically, I hope to achieve the exact same thing with everybody listening to this right now.
Okay. Thanks, Harper. So this is my buddy told me this story, and this happened when these kids were in high school, and they were all from Utah, and one of the kids' parents owned a lot of property, and they had a cabin on it, and it was in Wyoming, this remote part of Wyoming. And so they went up there, and he said that there were miles of dirt roads to get to this cabin, and there weren't even any other cabins, in the immediate vicinity. There's miles of in between cabins too. So there were like 30 kids that went up as their senior trip or something like that. And so they went up. My friend said the first thing that was weird that happened was they went to this gas station, and he said this gas station was straight out of a creepy movie. And in my mind, I'm picturing like one pump, the light flickering, gravel.
There was an era of movies for like all the teen slasher films where every single one of them started at a gas station at one point that had the
Yeah,
one pump that you had to like pull the lever down in order to get it going, and it wasn't actual digital numbers. It was like the physical turning numbers that would tell you how much gas was in your car and how much it cost and all that stuff. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
yeah, yeah. Just imagine that. That's what I picture. And so they went and bought some stuff from the store, and they said that the attendant was just a weird dude, just had a weird vibe, and just seemed off. And he started asking him some questions, and he's just like, "Where are y'all headed?" And they told him, "Oh, we're in this area up here," and he's like, he gets really concerned when they tell him where they're going, and he says, "Y'all aren't sleeping outside, are you?" And I'm like, "No, we're going to a cabin, And he says, "Oh, that's good, because there's a rumor that the goat man's out." And they all just look at each other like, "Okay, dude, you've had one too many drugs in your day." So anyway, they just laughed it off because they're like, that's just this dude is just out of his mind. So anyway, they keep going up, and when they get to the cabin, the first thing that they notice when they're at the cabin is there's this loud clicking sound coming from the forest, but nobody really knows what it is. Nobody's heard it before. Not even the kid that owned the cabin or the family that owned the cabin, but they're like, must be, some reason for it. Didn't think much of it. So they're hanging out. They get up there on a Friday. They're hanging out. Nighttime rolls around. And there's this guy and this girl, the high school guy and girl, they're walking on the path. So they left the group just walking out on the trail. And they see what they think is someone from their group on the trail ahead of them. So they shine their light up to see who it is. And it's not a high school kid. It's some like middle-aged man. And he's probably like 30 yards on the trail in front of them. And he's dressed in all animal skins, all over his body, even as a hat. And as soon as they shine the light on this guy, he runs off of the trail like into the forest. And they're like, dude, that is weird, and so they ran back to the cabin and told everyone, and they were all creeped out because it was so rare to see people up here even during the day, and much more weird to see people at night. So everyone stayed inside that night. They're like, there's this weird dude creeping around, like, we're just gonna chill in the cabin. So the next day, nothing else happened that night. Next day comes around. Most of the kids decided to leave on that day, on Saturday. So there were only 7 kids that decided they were going to stay that night. So most kids
And
left around.
just to clarify, most of them wanted to leave because they were just like a little too creeped out, or what was the motivation behind that?
I think some of them left because they were creeped out, and some of them just had planned to leave anyway. So kind of a combination. But so 7 kids decided to stay, and most of the kids left around 2 in the afternoon on Saturday. So nighttime rolls around again, and one of the kids, they just decided to play a joke on. And so at night, they locked him out of the cabin. And he was just like freaking scared to be out there alone. And so he's like pounding on the door, just pissed off. And he's saying, let me the F in. I'm not joking around. I'm going to effing kill you guys. Like, let me in now. Stuff like that. And finally, after a couple minutes, they let him in. Nothing happened to the kid. So they let him in, just all kind of laughed about it. So anyway, that night around 12:30, they were all just hanging out, and they hear something knock at the door, but it wasn't like a normal knock. It was like something would hit the door really hard and then slide down the door, and hit the door really hard and slide all the way down the door. And it did that a bunch of times.
Let me know if I'm getting the sound right, because I know you've done it before. It's like this. I'm gonna try and get it with the mic. It's like this bang, like, only you can't hear it like slide. You can't hear my desk slide, but it like does this like little slide
Yes,
thing.
exactly.
I don't know.
That's exactly it. So it's this loud bang, and then you hear this kind of like scraping down the door. So anyway, everyone freezes because they're like, dude, who would that be? Our friends left hours ago. So they yelled through the door, who is it? And they said it was the most evil voice they've ever heard. And there was no real way to describe how it made them feel or how it sounded even. So they said the only way that they could kind of describe it is when you hear cats make that creepy, low growly sound. And so that's the first clip I want you to pull up is an example of what they were trying to tell us this voice sounded like.
You want to pull it up now?
Yeah.
Okay. I've only done this one other time. It may take a second. Here we go. This should work. Okay. Let me know when you guys see it. Taking a second.
Jump scare.
Oh, that'd be amazing. I'm guessing we all see the same thing. It's like my screen is still loading.
Yeah, it's still loading.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. You see it now?
Yep.
Okay.
So here's what the voice sounded like. So, that's good.
Okay.
So
Uh,
they they heard this voice that sounded like that low, growly cat sound. And he said that doesn't even do it justice. It sounded like an unearthly voice. And it said verbatim what that kid had said earlier that night. Let me the F in. I'm going to kill you guys. Or I'm not joking around. I'm going to F and kill you guys. Let me in now. Word for word what that kid had said earlier that night. And once it got done reciting that, they heard that loud clicking sound that they had heard when they initially got there right outside the house. And they said it started circling the house faster than anybody would be able to run. And it was just going around and around. So they weren't sure what to do, but they did have some shotguns in the house. And so one of the kids gets a shotgun and opens the front door. And as soon as he does, this thing disappears back into the woods. So he shoots 3 shots out in the woods and yells out, "If you come back, we're going to kill you." So they close the door, and everyone's freaking out, dude. People are crying, they're hysterical, they're not sure what to do, and they have this discussion like, do we stay at the cabin tonight, or do we drive home tonight? And ultimately, they decided it was safer to stay instead of driving on miles of dirt roads, to get out of here and loading the car and everything else. And so they're like, we'll just lock, all the doors. We'll all sleep in the same room. It's 12:30 by this point anyway, so we'll just sleep and leave first thing in the morning when it's light. So that's what they do. They all sleep in the same room, and like 3:30 rolls around. Everyone else had fallen asleep except for one kid. And this kid was so scared that he just could not fall asleep. He was just petrified. And he even grabbed the shotgun, was like laying right next to the shotgun, um, just for comfort. And so, yeah, 3:30, he sees someone come in from the bathroom, into the room from the bathroom that was attached to the room, and lay down in the room. So he's thinking to himself, dude, I don't think I fell asleep, and I know I didn't see anybody walk into the bathroom. So he leans up to count the people in the room, and it's dark where you can see figures of people, but you can't tell who's whom. So he counts the figures in the room, and there are 8 people in the room, not 7. So there's one extra person there that's not in their group. So he is just so scared. He has no idea what to do. So he just like
that to
casually
me,
laid
like
back
at
down.
that point, sorry to interject, but like at that point, this is where everybody hearing the story has to be reflective. Like, what in the world would you do? Because I
Run,
Yeah,
have
scream.
no freaking idea.
yeah. When they say you're gonna have
That
one of 3 responses: fight, flight, or freeze. This
is that
kid
what it
was
is?
obviously the freeze, right?
Yeah.
Um, so anyway, he lays back down and is just like petrified, just waiting for something to happen. And he says about 20 minutes later, he sees this figure get up, and it stands over everyone in the room, and its chest is shaking like violently, like it's laughing really hard, but it's not making any sound. So it stands over everyone in the room, including him, and does that. And then as soon as it finishes that ritual or whatever it was, it goes back into the bathroom and shuts the door. So the kid just laid there the entire night, didn't wake anybody up, didn't tell anybody. In fact, he waited for a long time to tell people after the fact, and he had to go to counseling and stuff for it. I mean, he was messed up from this. But
What are you
he went
laughing
and
at,
checked.
Chase? You psychopath?
He went and checked the bathroom the next day, and the window was open to the bathroom. And so, fast forward in hindsight, there were some Indian reservations that were close to this cabin, or relatively close, and so they think the goat man that the old guy was talking about, they think that clicking sound, they think the thing that the guy that was on the trail and the thing that broke into the cabin was doing that ritual. they think it was an Indian skinwalker, and it was doing some skinwalker ritual. So that's the story of the Goat Man. And the second video that I want to bring up, years later, I was watching. I love scary movies, and I was watching this trailer to The Conjuring 2. It's called The Conjuring 2: Happenings in Enfield, and it's about this girl that gets possessed. And dude, when I watched the trailer, I had to pause it because I was by myself, and it creeped me out so bad. But there's an actual recording of this. I believe she's an 11-year-old girl when she's possessed. And when I heard that, I'm like, that is the exact voice that they were trying to describe. And so just wanted to play this so you could see what they were trying to describe.
So is that basically it?
Yeah, that's it. So that was an 11-year-old girl making that growly sound. And when I heard that, I'm like, that's what they were trying to describe, 100%.
Dude, I love the convenience of doing this remotely and us being in the comfort of our own homes. Here's the problem now with what we've done. I'm not comfortable in my own home right now. So
one of us is going to see someone coming up behind us while we're talking.
God, dude, you psychopath. All right, well, let's talk about that for a second. So you knew these kids personally, right, Trev?
Yes. Well, it was my friend who told me the story, and it was his friend. So I've actually never met the kid that this happened to.
And they're all dead now, right?
Yeah, they're gone. Rest in peace.
The Goat Man got him over time with his ritual.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Yeah, so Chase, do you have any questions about the story or anything?
Dude, if I was the kid with the shotgun, I would have blasted him. And he's
Do you really think you would have?
Trying to ghost rape me or whatever he was
room
doing?
full of 7 other people? I don't think you could safely do that,
Yeah,
unless you did it when he was right over you.
Well, here's the thing. For those that don't know Chase really well, he doesn't really care about strays. He's fine just letting it rip.
Yeah, I mean, if the Goat Man, if someone has to die as like collateral damage, if I get to kill the Goat Man, I'm killing the Goat Man.
I mean,
There's something to it, man.
Yeah.
That is, that's kind of how some heroes are made. You just gotta do what is it, calculated risks. That's all it is.
I will say this, dude. I've been in a couple of scenarios where I thought it was life and death, and my logical thinking was not there, and I did not react how I thought I would to those scenarios. So I think it's hard to say how you would react in that situation unless you've been in there, because how I've acted in perceived life and death scenarios, I did not act. The logic was just gone from me, and I didn't act logically.
Yeah, I mean, if something that crazy is happening, you're probably that's on such a level of overload. You're not going to act the way you would pre-plan it. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. As I'm hearing this again, I'm thinking, especially because I think the climax of the fear is when he notices that there's 8 instead of 7 people. Like not even the standing part. Like the standing part's definitely creepy. It's super creepy. It's almost as creepy as but the realization setting in that there's more people than are in the house are in that room. Like there's one more person that should be there, is the part where I'm like, knowing myself and not knowing what you're dealing with, that it's some weird chupacabra skinwalker thing. Like, I'm frozen. I know myself well enough to know that I am freezing in that moment. It's other scenarios, because here's the thing, it's the unknown that gets me. It's like, I don't know what this thing is or what it's capable of. There are other scenarios where I try to think through some things where I'm like, when it comes to like in defense of myself or others and I'm dealing with another human, I feel like my fight could kick in a little bit easier. I still don't know for sure, and I wouldn't dare say that for sure it would. But it's the unknown of something supernatural where it's like, I don't even know what I'm dealing with, and I am so frozen with fear that I'm not moving. So I actually don't blame the kid, quite frankly.
Yeah. I'm at least waking everyone up. I'm yelling at the top of my lungs, wake everyone up and see what the hell is going on.
Yeah.
What if the Goat Man transformed into one of your friends and you didn't know it, and there's 2 of them, and you have to decide which one are we going to kill?
Yeah.
Or are you going to say Trev?
Nothing. Nothing. That's it. That's the Go Man story.
All right.
That's
Well,
probably what I heard breathing in my ear was that damn goat man.
Probably, bro.
the thing is, if you're gonna be anything, why would you choose to be a goat? Like, I like goats. I like petting goats at the state fair a lot. I don't find them particularly fearful. Obviously, if it's like half goat, half man, yeah, that's creepy. But like, I don't know, what else are goats good for besides being really efficient at eating grass and kind of jumping? I don't think they're particularly fast.
Like able to be satanic or something.
What?
I thought they were
Oh, is there
Satanism.
something to that where it's like the
Something
the
like that.
the, the goat legs and like the how Satan is sometimes depicted with those like kind of goat horns and like the bottom legs are like goat legs?
I don't know. I don't know. I just thought there was something to that, but who knows?
You might be right. You might be right.
So my scout leader growing up, his name is Paulo Bangeter. Um, and this is a straight laced guy, dude. Anything that came from this guy's mouth, I would trust with 100% certainty. So he told us the story about when he was younger. He and two of his friends went up hunting in Idaho, and one of them had this access to a cabin. It's not even a cabin. It's didn't have any electricity. It was one room. It was more of a shanty than anything, but it was just this kind of cabin that we use for hunting purposes only. So they all rode up by horseback, and it was like way in there in the woods, and they tied their horses up and for the night and went in the cabin and just were hanging out. So I haven't spent much time around horses, so I don't know, but he said that when horses get extremely scared, they make this high pitched, almost screaming sound. And so and it takes a lot for them to get that scared. So anyway, their horses started screaming, screeching, making that sound in the middle of the night. So they ran out to go see what was wrong. They expected their horses to be to be being attacked by wolves or something, and they couldn't see anything. There was nothing out there. So they take 20 minutes and calm the horses down. Finally, they're chilled out. They go back in the cabin. Well, 45 minutes later, the same thing happens. And so again, they run outside and fully expecting to see something, and there's nothing there. And by this time, they're kind of creeped out, thinking there might be something out there, or horses are sensing that we can't see. Well, this happens three more times throughout the night. The horses start freaking out, and they go calm them down, and nothing is visible out there. So that really freaked them out, but they decided to keep doing the hunting trip, the river, to get some water, to filter some water. So he goes down there, and it's about half mile or more down to the river. And he comes back, and his face is just pale white. He's visibly shaking. He's so scared, and he's got his knife in his hand, clutching his knife. And I'm like, bro, what's wrong? Like, what's going on? And he said that as he was getting water down at the river, he felt this sense that something was watching him. He just had this creepy feeling that something was watching him. And as he's walking back up the trail, he hears footsteps in the woods following him. And when he would stop and listen, the footsteps would stop. And when he would keep going, the footsteps would keep going. And it follows him all this way up the trail. And so he's so scared that something's going to attack him that he gets his knife out and walks up the trail just ready for something to jump and attack him. But nothing ever did. So that's when he shows up at the cabin. So they again decided, like, hey, we'll keep, we've come all this way. We'll keep doing our hunting trip. But yeah, that's creepy. Like, we'll keep our head on a swivel. We'll watch out. So anyway, they were hunting, and they were on this mountainside, and he said there's this big ravine and then another mountainside. And he said that there was a guy in a white coat that was walking up the mountainside. And so it was rare to see people up here too. So they yelled out to him just to wave hi. And one of the kids was looking at the guy through his scope, like using his binoculars. And when they yelled out to this guy, they said he turned around and it wasn't a guy, it was an animal standing on its hind legs. And they said it turned at its waist like an owl would turn its neck, almost all the way around. And this animal looked at them for a second, and then he turned back around and ran up the mountainside and over the mountain like super fast, way faster than any human would be able to run. And so they think that's the thing that was stalking their buddy earlier, and that's the thing that was spooking their horses, was some Sasquatch type thing. So that was kind of a spooky story too.
Here's the thing, that doesn't sound as much like Sasquatch as it does a Skinwalker, which kind of makes me think, for as many Skinwalker stories as there are, how come we've never come across a Skinwalker story where like they murdered somebody? Seems like all they do is just morph into animals and just like run around super fast.
So I actually read an article from the church about this,
From the
and it was
church?
yeah, dude, it was weird. I found it on BYU's website, and I've had a hard time finding it since. But I think it was L. Tom Perry and a couple other people were like printed this document, but he mentioned that in this, I don't know what, this document, and he said it's rare that skinwalkers kill people. Most of the time, it seems to be ritualistic or seems to just be to scare whomever they're doing it to. But he did mention the fact that it's not even
L. Tom Perry mentioned Skinwalkers in a type of article or a talk where it was like, yes, for sure they're a real thing and they
it was
exist.
one of the brethren.
But
It was one of the brethren. I can't remember.
that's crazy.
I want to say it was L. Tom Perry, but it was definitely one of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles that was on this document. And they locked it up, I swear, because I can't find it. I've searched for it multiple times since, but I feel like BYU locked it up. I'll send you the link, though, because I've been able to find it sometimes, but I can't access it because it's in the BYU library. So maybe you could.
Send it to me for sure. I want to see
Yeah.
that. That's amazing. Um, one thing I heard, and this is going to sound like super morbid, but one part of the ritual is that in order to become a skinwalker, you have to kill somebody you love or something like that. I don't know. I don't know if you guys have heard any of that. Like it has to be
I've
like
probably
a
heard that before, but I don't know. Who knows what's true?
sacrificial blood atonement type thing. I don't know. But all right,
Maybe that's
Travis,
where
you're
all the
looking that
missing,
up. Maybe you can find that. What was that, Chase?
so that maybe that's where all the missing people go. Those are the Skinwalker victims. We just assume they went
That's
missing,
right.
but maybe.
That's right. All right, Chase, how about you close it out with one more scary story of yours? This has been a good sesh, guys.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, this is another mission one. It's actually not. I'm kind of peripherally involved in the story, but it didn't directly happen to me. But it just I was living in the same house when this happened. And so I had a companion. We were actually companions three different times in the mission, and we were like best buds in the mission. And he's actually, I'm not going to mention his name on here, but he's sort of famous in like Utah football history. Like he broke a lot of records in high school. So like anyway, not really relevant to the story, but so he was like one of those guys that whenever people would talk, like every mission has those like legends of like, oh, this house is haunted, or like, they had to bless this house because things were happening in the house. So he always made fun of those stories. Like I remember on multiple occasions he would always make fun of that stuff, never believed any of it. And at the end of our missions, we were living in the same apartment, but not as companions. We just like he had like there were like 10 missionaries in this house, and my bedroom was like literally the living room. I just had a mattress on the floor in the living room with my companion, and then he had his bedroom like a bunk bed with his companion. And one morning he comes to me at breakfast, and he was like really quiet that morning, like uncharacteristically, and he's like he just looks like really concerned about something. He like pulls me aside like into another room, and he's like, dude, like I got to tell someone about this, but you're the only one I can tell. and he tells me that the night before, he's on the bottom bunk in the bunk bed, and he wakes up with like this terrible feeling, like there's like a bad presence in the room, and he turns over in bed. He's on the bottom bunk, and he looks up, and there's this like silhouette, like a figure leaning up against the bunk bed, like looking down at him and just staring at him. I mean, he can't see like any facial features. It's just like a figure. But it gave him like the worst feeling he's ever had in his life. So instead of like doing anything, he just turned over in bed, looked away, and just prayed until he fell asleep, like all night long. So he tells me this, and like I'm a pretty good lie detector, and there's like zero chance that, at least in his mind, he's telling me the truth 100%. Like in my perception of what he was telling me was like he is not bluffing. This is not a joke. This is 100% legit. And so because of the way my room was situated, like in the living room, there were like three different corridors that like emerged from this room, like dark corridors. And for the next 3 weeks, I kid you not, I did not sleep a wink of sleep because I just kept picturing having this figure appear at the end of the corridor, just like staring at me, and I couldn't get that image out of my head. And it was like most horrible I felt ever in my life was like those 2 or 3 weeks after he told me that story. I never saw it, but that tormented me like as if it had happened to me. It was pretty messed up. So
That's disturbing, man. Like that
yeah.
freaking uh I you hear those stories of the MTC, like with like evil spirits coming into rooms and things like that. Nothing ever happened to me. Nothing ever happened on my mission. I actually had something pretty cool that I looked back on in my patriarchal blessing that says like follow the promptings and live a righteous mission and you will be protected. It said something specific like that. And I remember looking back and I'm like, I really was protected. Like I didn't have anything. Like there was maybe a hurricane got close to hitting us and all that, but like that wasn't even ever like no one was really ever that scared. Like I never felt that scared anyway. But these things do happen. Um,
You
Trev,
were
did
you were
you?
you were a better missionary than me.
No, no. That's not it at all. Like
Just joking.
I just think it's cool that like it's obviously not contingent on your righteousness, obviously. But I just thought it was cool that like it said that specifically in my patriarchal blessing, where I just like, I guess I never did something so stupid that put me in harm's way or anything
Well,
along those
I
lines.
can attest to that because I listened to a BYU game on the radio in the MTC and I broke my thumb the next day. So you're
You
you're
know,
not wrong.
Wait, how'd you even listen to it on the radio? How'd you get
I
a
had a little
radio in
clock
there?
radio, man. So I just had a little headphone and I was just like secretly listening to it. It was like BYU versus Air Force in basketball. I don't even know why I wanted to listen to that game, but
That's so fun. Yeah, that's true. It would have been basketball when you were there. That's a
yeah,
waste.
yeah,
Anyway,
busted my thumb for
um,
it.
Trev, you ever find that document? You got anything for us?
I sent you the link to it. I think is what, but it doesn't let you access it anymore. But it's from the Elton Perry collection or something. I sent it to you on Facebook.
The L. Tom
All right,
Perry Chronicles.
let me try and pull this up. In the meantime, as we really close things up here, I want to hear what the scariest movie in your guys' mind is. That's the last thing I want to talk about. And I'll warn you guys now, the one for me isn't a movie I've really seen, but it freaks me out so much I won't even watch it. So that I'll go last because mine probably be a little anticlimactic.
Uh,
I'll be honest, like movies, I don't really get scared by movies very easily. I just remember in high school, we watched The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and my parents were like super strict about sleepovers. And that was like, I had to beg so hard to get a sleepover that night because there was no way in hell I was going home and sleeping by myself after watching that movie. So that was probably it. But I haven't watched it in years, so I couldn't tell you if it's even scary now.
Were you crying? You're like talking to your parents, and you're like, please, please.
Sleepover.
Exorcism of Emily Rose? I have not.
yeah. So that's got to be up there for me. I would say I'll say this that's got the scariest parts in it of any movie I've seen. I think But it jumps. It's actually super interesting because it jumps back and forth from like a courtroom scene in a court case that actually happened, and the story of Emily Rose. So the parts where it's showing her life and stuff like that some of those are the scariest parts I've seen. I think maybe I don't know if it's the scariest, but up there is Sinister. That might be my favorite scary movie or one of them.
I didn't want to
Um,
watch that one either. Yeah, I saw that. I saw the trailer for that. It's Ethan Hawke, right?
uh, yeah. And
Yeah.
then another one I recently watched was called The Dark and the Wicked, and that one is good. That's kind of an under the radar movie, but that one was super solid.
Yeah, dude, the link you sent me just took me to the BYU library. Nothing. Didn't work.
Yeah,
So I
I
can't see
swear
anything that you sent. They
they
scrubbed it,
they
dude.
buried that document, dude.
They did. What's this one you talk about? The what and the wicked?
The Dark and the Wicked.
And what's it about?
Um, it's about it's kind of Skinwalker vibes, honestly. But it's this like grandpa and grandma that live on this really creepy farm. And the grandma, their health starts declining, so these kids come out and help, and it's just this thing that's kind of terrorizing them while they're out there. It's Yeah, I don't want to say too much more than that, but it's definitely worth watching.
What's it called again?
Hmm. The
The
Dark and the
Dark
Wicked.
and the Wicked. Yeah.
All right.
Chase
Watch
will
it
definitely
alone.
check it out.
Hey,
Probably
hey, hey,
tonight.
watch it before basketball, Chase, and let me know what you think.
Yeah.
And
I'll
Harper,
give
you
you a
watch it
report.
too. I know you
I don't
won't
know,
though.
man. I'm more of a wuss. I like yeah, I don't know. I definitely like scary movies, but I don't watch just any scary movie. But so the one that like I will not bring myself to watch, and you guys have probably seen it and have probably been like, I know I already talked about it with Chase, but you'll probably be like, you're a freaking pansy, dude. But there's a short for this movie, and it's the freaking creepiest even movie that's 8 minutes long that I've ever seen. It's called Lights Out. So it started as a short, and they put it into film festivals, and then from there they got the funding to actually put it into a full feature film, hour and a half, 2 hours long, or whatever. Have you seen it, Trev?
Yeah, I've seen the short and
You
the actual movie.
you've seen the actual movie, dude? Okay, so I'm gonna explain it so to the listeners. But Chase, have you seen the full movie?
I don't know if I've seen the full movie. I've definitely seen the short, which is definitely. I mean, it's for a 2 minute movie. It's terrifying.
I'm actually
But
mad at myself for even bringing this up because it's late right now, and I don't want to go to bed like at this rate thinking about
just
this.
keep the
But
lights on and you'll be good.
I guess. So like the short is this woman who's just going to bed, and she just like as she before she gets into her own bedroom, she turns the hallway lights off. And you know how like when you have the end of the hallway where it's like, it's obviously if you're getting light from one room that's going down the hall like over certain length, like the light just dissipates, but you can kind of make out some things in the distance, objects or whatever else. She turns off the light, and at the end of the hallway, she sees like half of this figure, like with its back to her. And it's like a silhouette, and she just like kind of squints, and she's just like, and then she turns the lights on, nothing there. Turns it off again, and it's there again, but it's closer. And she like turns it on, like on again, and is just like, what the freak? And so then I think eventually she just goes to her room and like then starts hearing like this thing trying to get into her room, and I don't remember how that thing ends, and I'm kind of glad I don't remember how it ends, but it's just kind of this whole idea of like turning out the lights, that's when you'll see the figure coming after you. And I'm like, gosh, that's such a simple concept that works so well in my mind, and it freaking terrifies me, and I will never watch that movie for that reason.
It's the
Dude,
same reason when
Colby,
like when you like go to when you like go up the stairs in the dark. Everyone has that like primal instinct. You got to run
Uh-huh.
up the stairs.
Uh-huh.
They can make a movie on that. Like there's a guy who grabs your feet if you don't run the stairs.
dude, I love
I've
asking
trained
people.
myself to fight that. I will walk up dark stairs just to prove a point. But I feel like most people just run.
I don't
Yeah, yeah,
run. The person who I will kiss when I meet them, if I ever meet them, male or female, I don't care, is the one who had the idea to think of a bottom stairs light and a top stairs light. So you never have to walk up the stairs in the dark. Anyway, Trev, what were you saying?
I love asking people that question. Like, when's the last time you ran up the stairs because you were scared? Because it's almost
Yeah.
always like within the last 6 months, you know, but it's definitely within their adult life. They've run up the stairs.
That's so funny, dude. I'll be
Yeah.
honest, I'm not sure I have in my current house. I always have to go up the stairs from the main floor. It's a townhome because I'm not sure I have only because of that reason, because I can turn the lights off from upstairs. I
Dude, I've
probably
been
have walked more swiftly at times, I'll be honest. I've probably walked a little more swiftly, just being like, I still can't see behind me, so I'm just gonna like try and get up here and down the hall as quick as I can. But
I
I've
bet
been
tonight you're
tempted in this
running.
house. We've had some creepy experiences in the house, and I've been tempted. But to your point, Chase, I'm like, dude, I can't give up my man card. I'm not running up these
yeah,
damn stairs, you know?
that is
I,
how I
I feel
feel
like
too. It's like,
whatever it is that's chasing me up the stairs, it's gonna respect me more if I don't run, and it won't get me. That's my thought.
is that how it
Yeah,
works?
there you
So you could argue that what you're doing isn't even like, what's the word, honorable. You're just trying to play chess or something.
Yeah, I'm always
go.
playing
Maybe.
chess.
So one more thing on Emily Rose. Colby Faust watched that movie and had to sleep with his light on for 3 days after, and he refuses to watch it again. He is like, and he's down with scary movies, but he's like, dude, that is the most evil movie. I will never watch that again. But I love that movie, dude. I've got the DVD of it, and I think it's good. But
And nobody
you
even
know,
owns DVDs anymore.
I know, bro. But I will say this: we watched that movie in the woods, out my buddy's, like by his house. There were Art Dyke Park used to be like in American Fork. Used to be
Oh, dude,
very
Art Dye
wooded.
is like 10 minutes from my house. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. So that when I was growing up, that was like mostly it was like a couple baseball diamonds and then mostly like paintball fields and stuff. But we watched that movie, in high school, and in the middle of the movie there was a tree behind us that started to violently shake, and we stopped the movie and we thought for sure it was like
Someone playing a
some
prank.
kids trying to play a prank on us. There was nobody there. We walked around and it was in the fall time, so you would have heard, people crunching on leaves and stuff. There was nobody there, and it was not the wind. I mean, it was like someone violently shaking a tree, dude. And so we packed up and left like after that happened.
Mid
I'll say
movie?
this. Yeah, we packed up and didn't finish the movie. Yeah,
That's what I
we
mean,
just
mid
left.
movie. Yeah. Anyway.
Yes, mid movie.
Dude,
Um,
AF Canyon's kind of haunted. I get weird vibes up there sometimes. I
bro,
hiked up AF Canyon this morning in the dark to go see the sunrise up there, and I had some weird vibes. Like it's like,
and
I
no service up there.
yeah.
And I heard a story about kids up there that they were camping, and these people in masks came to their camp and like forced them to leave, and they thought they were joking around, and he got up in his face and was like, we're not your friends, like you guys leave now. And they left all their gear and stuff up there. But there's rumors that they're like Satan worshipers up AF Canyon.
Oh,
Dang.
Moses.
I need to
This is
stop
So
hiking
I
creeping
one
just
me
of them.
I like
out,
stuff,
guys.
dude.
This
I like this
conversation's
stuff.
scaring me more than the stories. Freak. Um, so what was I gonna say on that? Oh, the Exorcism movie. I don't like those movies, man. When it talks about like devil and satanic stuff, like obviously there's a lot of scary premises that are real, like murderers and whatever, like spiders, arachnophobia. Like I mean, that's not that accurate, but like the idea that you could die from a spider bite is real, I guess, or a spider could attack you or whatever. But my point is that I like those movies, but it's real too that you could do devil worship, that you can conjure up Satan in your life. I believe that, right? I do believe
Yeah.
that. And that's why it's like but that's the type of dabbling I don't even want to ever even be exposed to if I can help it. And specifically with the exorcism of Emily Rose, what I'm guessing it's something like this. I remember my mom specifically talking that she had seen The Exorcist, the original one. I think. I think she saw it, or she at least heard about it. She knew how it ended. I think she's. Wait, no. I'm not thinking. No, she had not seen The Exorcist. Sorry, no. she'd seen The Omen. You guys heard of that one?
It's
I've
like a
heard
little
of it.
kid
I
that
haven't
gets
seen it.
possessed, right?
Yeah, so it's a little kid. So it's not so much that he gets possessed, but The Omen, I believe it had Gregory Peck. He was the dad. My mom saw this. It was like back in the 60s, 70s, and they had this son that was born, and they named him Damien. And Damien was just this weird kid that like they could never really figure out. That would kind of do his own thing and just kind of had bad vibes all around. And it turns out that they find out that he was the Antichrist. He was born as the Antichrist and ended up being responsible, I think, for both of his parents' deaths. And there were people that would like in the movie, I think they would kill themselves in honor of Damien or something like that. But here's the part that I remember my mom specifically saying is that she felt like it was so dark because the movie ends with essentially this Antichrist prevailing. Like the dad goes to kill him, but in the last second is stopped and is killed by some other bystander trying to protect us who they perceive as an innocent kid, but is actually the Antichrist, something along those lines. And my mom remembers like saying, she's like, I just felt so dark because it was just this whole like evil was victorious even for this one story. And she's like, I hated that feeling because that's not what makes life so amazing. And that like the idea is, and to, maybe tie in some gospel references here and whatever, like this is a Latter Day Takes podcast. So the idea that what makes this life so much easier to live is knowing that good will prevail, that the righteous will win out. It may not, this life will still be hard and we could still die temporarily. And again, evil can prevail temporarily, but not from a final standpoint. And I thought that was kind of interesting to look at it that way, because I would imagine the Exorcist movies are kind of like that, where they leave this like cliffhanger where it's like, is the devil still out there? Does the Exorcist still exist within this person or whatever? What do you guys think?
Emily Rose ends on a good
Oh, it
message.
does?
What I will say about that stuff, though, I feel like in a lot of ways, so for me personally, if I ever had something like super dark, like a clearly an evil spirit thing happen to me, in a way, it would kind of increase my testimony because it's like, well, if that stuff is real, then clearly God's real. And so, like, anyone who struggles with like agnostic beliefs or atheist beliefs or like not sure if God is real, if you had something like that happen to you, then it sort of is in a weird way a confirmation of God being real. So, like, in that sense, like I feel like there's some protection from that happening because Satan doesn't want you to have your testimony improved by kind of confirming God's existence. So that's how I look at it.
Look,
Maybe that's why I don't have that stuff
look at
happen to
you.
me.
Look at you. Silver linings, man. So Satan's minions are all just really doing missionary work.
Exactly.
I hope that doesn't come back to bite me, because I definitely don't mean that. Anyway, all right, boys. Anything to say before we close up? I think we did a good one here.
Use a
Like,
nightlight tonight.
what's that?
I said use a nightlight tonight.
Yeah, no kidding. Hey, watch that movie though. Dark and the Wicked. I'm telling you,
Watch it.
worth it.
All right, gents. Thanks so much for coming on. We'll catch you
All right.
later. Maybe next year. We'll see. Happy Halloween,
Alrighty.
everyone.
Hey, you too.